Hello, dear ones, and welcome to Seasonal Sight. This is a reflective look at the current astrological season, offered through the lens of temperance. Before we begin, it's important to say this. This is not a forecast, it's not advice, and not something to follow blindly. Seasonal sight is an invitation to use your own discernment to notice patterns, tensions, and movements that may be present, and to reflect how you are choosing to meet them. Nothing shared here replaces your own judgment, responsibility, or lived experience. What resonates is yours to keep, what doesn't, you are free to leave behind. This work asks for radical honesty, not with me, but with yourself. It asks you to listen without rushing to conclusions, to observe without immediately acting, and to take responsibility for how you interpret and apply what you hear. Temperance is not about extremes, it's about balance, clarity, and self regulation. So, as you move through this reading with me, I invite you to stay present, grounded, and discerning, allowing insight to arise without forcing any type of meaning. Let's begin. Aquarius season begins on January 20th as the sun enters Aquarius, marking a shift away from personal will and emotional intensity towards perspective, objectivity, and mental clarity. Aquarius is an air sign concerned with consciousness, awareness, relationship between the individual and the collective, freedom, technology, innovation, rebellion, and the future. Traditionally, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, that rules structure, responsibility, limits, and in modern astrology, Aquarius is actually associated with Uranus, the planet of change, disruption, and awakening. So, Aquarius holds this type of paradox. It asks us to create change responsibly and to liberate ourselves without losing coherence. And this season is less about pushing ourselves forward and more about stepping back enough to see clearly. As we move into Aquarius season, there is a noticeable softening of mental pressure. This is, of course, not something instant, but it's a turning point. What felt overwhelming previously starts now to feel more light. Symbolically, this season carries the energy of emerging from mental strain, learning that peace is actually not the absence of fear, but the ability to relate to it in a different way. So let's look at the key astrological movements that will shape this season. We start with January 20th, of course, when the sun enters Aquarius, and this marks the official start of the Aquarius season. And our attention turns toward clarity, awareness, and ideas. It is a time to examine the mental frameworks we've lived inside of and to notice which ones no longer serve our well being. At the same day, Mercury will also enter Aquarius. And this will heighten our perception, and communication becomes more honest, more detached, and less emotionally charged. This can support lighter conversations, clearer conversations, insights, but it also may highlight where we've been overthinking or intellectualizing feelings instead of processing them. On January 23rd, Mars also enters Aquarius, and Here, Mars redirects action away from impulse and towards intention. It is a kind of movement that will make us choose distance over confrontation. Um, it will incline us to act through principle rather than emotion and to assert boundaries mentally, not really externally, but more for ourselves. So, this energy that Mars brings in Aquarius is present, but it's expressed through the choices we make, not the urgency for making the choices. Um, I say this a lot of times in my work, but anything that is urgent, usually it's not aligned with divine will. Okay, just a tip on that. On January 26th, Neptune will enter Aries, and this is one of the most significant shifts of the season because Neptune moving into Aries begins a long transition where ideas will become action. Um, we will be asked to embody more and more of our inspiration. And um, if you've been feeling confused about your direction in life, this begins to become more clear during this transit. So, in the beginning, it may feel disorienting, a sense that something wants to begin, but without a clear understanding, a clear map yet. So, a lot of patience is required here. Then we have the full moon on February 1st, this Leo full moon that will illuminate the tension between the personal expression and the collective perspective. Leo versus Aquarius, right? So, this lunation can highlight our desire to be seen, but also our fears around our self expression, um, old emotional narratives connected to the need to be validated. So it is an invitation to notice where recognition is still tied to anxiety and not really enable you to fully trust yourself. Okay, on February 4th, we have Uranus going direct in Taurus. Uranus turning direct brings movement um, to areas in life that you may have felt were a bit stagnant, like your sense of stability, things around not only material value, but also moral value, material security, but also emotional security, and the relationship with our physical body and our resources. So, um, it's a good moment to do some shifts to change some things because it will definitely support long term change, especially where you felt kind of rigid or stressed. So on February 6th, we have Mercury entering Pisces, and then on February 10th, also Venus going into Pisces. And this movement brings mental clarity, compassion, a lot more emotional sensitivity, and intuition. And this is a period of shift in the energy that asks for a lot of gentleness, especially in relationships and in communication with others. Then on February 12th to February 18th, we have the conjunctions with the lunar node, Mercury and Venus, will align with the lunar node. The lunar node um, is a mathematical point around the moon that is correlated to our purpose and our destiny. This alignment will suggest the possibility of having meaningful conversations, um, insights. There's a lot of possibility here to really get into a relational realignment. And these are points of awareness, and during this transit, um, listening matters more than deciding. So, not really asking for action on your relationships or your life, but for more to observe and listen what's going on. The answers will come later. On February 14th, Saturn enters Aries, and this begins a new cycle around responsibility, discipline, and learning when to initiate and to wait, to have the discernment to know when to start something or to wait for something, for the right timing to initiate something. In this shift, um, really reinforces this season bigger message that freedom without responsibility only leads to chaos, and structure without courage just brings us to stagnation. And on February 17th, we have the new moon and the solar eclipse in Aquarius. And this marks a powerful point of reset. Eclipses work over time, so they usually express their energy throughout, at least even 6 months later. Okay, so this eclipse on February um, invites us to release our outdated identities, the way we think, invites us to engage with new ways of relating to our community, of relating to how we see ourselves, a reorientation towards more inner peace, inner calm, instead of trying to control everything that's going on our minds. And yeah, this will allow us to create a lot of space moving forward. So while anxiety and mental pressure may be easing throughout this season, we will still be asked for honesty about what is still being held onto unnecessarily. It's a very recurrent theme. It was constant throughout 2025, and it will still be present this year, at least this beginning months, because they are still astrologically connected, right? The beginning of the year actually only happens in Aries season around March, right? So there may be resistance to fully releasing old identities. We are all being asked to shift ourselves from one identity to another, from the past identity to the awakened current identity. Um, there's still a lot of resistance to fully release familiar coping mechanisms or beliefs that once provided safety but now are only actually creating stagnation. So, in order for us to really achieve through peace, we are required to allow endings to unfold, even if they feel uncomfortable. And Aquarius season will remind us that mental freedom doesn't come from avoiding change completely, but from accepting it consciously. So, this season, it's not a season for drastic outward action. It's more about being honest with what we think, with what we feel, um, to be moderate in the way we live life, and to have the courage to make the necessary changes, um, more inner changes than external ones. And as we move through the 7 domains of temperance, of experience, basically, um, this reading will explore how balance, awareness, and self regulation can be restored. So, the invitation of Aquarius season is we don't need to solve everything yet. We only need to see things more clearly. Okay, so let's look at the first axis that refers to our physical reality, our material reality, our sense of stability. It's related to finances, to the physical body, all those things. I'm using the animal, sacred animals. I don't really know. I can reference it later. Okay. So we got the snake for the physical axis. Hmm. There is a strong but underutilized physical and material potential, one that has been dormant, because didn't really had the right conditions to rise yet. The snake usually points to latent energy in the body and the nervous system. And there's definitely more vitality, more creativity, more resourcefulness available to you than you are currently assessing. However, this type of potential cannot awaken through force, right? It can only awaken through consistent regulation. Let me clarify with the tarot just to see what is going on here. Why is this energy dormant? Let's clarify. Whoop. Okay. Okay. We've got the 10 of Wands, which shows, yeah, this is a system under load. Many of you are carrying too much, might be physically, energetically, emotionally, or even materially. It's like this is about not choosing that responsibility and still having to be responsible for things. Okay. And it's not even a single burden, it's an accumulation. Too many obligations, unfinished tasks, or demands placed on a body that it's not recovered. And at the same time, it came the Page of Swords reverse. So this indicates that is scattered energy, scattered attention. It's an inefficient, Jesus, an inefficient use of mental energy. The Page of Swords reverse. It's like the green. It's green. It's not matured, right? So it has this tendency to start things without finishing them, to react without, yeah, it doesn't have a plan, just reacts. Um, or to stay mentally busy without translating thought into grounded action. This also reminds me of this. There are a lot of people that work like this. They really like to overthink things instead of starting to create them in a grounded way, right? And this directly drains physical stability. Okay, there is energy being leaked through overextension and poor pacing. Your body may feel tense, restless, or depleted, not even truly tired. It's just a funky feeling. And product productivity is suffering right now because of this fragmentation. It's not that you don't lack that you lack the ability, you're just fragmented. And I do sense that for a lot of you, a lot of this stress um, is especially being expressed through financial or material difficulties, and it's related to this inconsistent follow through. Okay, like you begin a lot of things, but you don't complete any, or you just complete a few. Um, your physical routines may be lacking consistency. You're like this can also happen through like the effort you put into things right now feels very heavy, and you don't really have the results that would make you feel satisfied with the effort you put in. Yeah. So, um, we need to restore balance into our physical system throughout the season, okay? This is not a time to add more effort, okay? It's a time to wake up um, and use what you already have, okay? So it's very present here in the energy, the need to regulate. And because we are talking about physical axis, we're talking about the body based regulation, right? Like breathe, slow movement, consistent movement rather than intense movement. Okay. Meditation, grounding, all these things can help you to calm your nervous system. And also bringing a bit of discipline to your routines will help reduce the fatigue that comes from making too many decisions. Okay. This is the beginning, symbolically speaking, the beginning of Kundalini style awakening. Okay. It starts with stability. Not with expansion, not in a dramatic sense. It requires constant regulation. Remember that. You have everything that you need. You have all the potential. There is no lack of potential here. There is a lack of commitment towards self in a practical sense. So if you continue to push without restructuring how your energy is used, you will feel exhausted. If you regulate, if you simplify and commit to fewer things with more consistency, then your vitality will increase naturally and also your prosperity. So this season definitely asks for less struggle and more coherence, and the body will respond accordingly. Okay, let's go for the axis number 2, emotional axis, how we feel, our desires, our creative, personal selves. Wait, here we have the black egg, and I'm reading a reversed version of it. So it says to me that this needs balance. And what is this? Egg. The black egg represents truth. Truth, precise truth, not confrontational truth. A truth that is internally consistent. Because when you are emotionally aligned with truth, there is no need for explaining yourself, for justification, or any emotional noise, right? When we are holding truth, our communication slows down. We use fewer words, but they are clearer, right? So this season asks us to confront a simple but uncomfortable question, like, are you really relating from truth? When we don't access our truth in an emotional sense, um, we tend to suppress our feelings, right? We reshape them, we edit them just to maintain things in a harmonious way, to not enter into conflict, right? We downplay our desires, what our needs, what we really want, to avoid the discomfort or of feeling vulnerable or just rejected by others, right? We start to say, when we're not tapping into our emotional truth, we may say what others want to hear instead of what we really feel, right? And these emotional narratives are repeated to justify patterns that don't make sense anymore. When we don't connect to our truth, when we don't connect to truth, there can be gossip, oversharing, or emotional performance, right? And this creates emotional leakage. Energy is spent managing perception instead of experiencing genuine connection. Let me clarify this with the tarot just to, because today I'm going to clarify every axis. Uh-huh. Okay, 10 of cups. This is it. This is the consequence of emotional truth. Emotional fulfillment, right? Real emotional fulfillment is possible when we connect to truth. When we do it honestly, right? Not through accommodation or adaptation or avoidance of conflict, for example. Okay, this is about emotional alignment. Saying yes when you mean yes. Saying no when something doesn't resonate. Acknowledging what you feel without minimizing it, right? So, in practical terms, this means that Relationships will stabilize when you stop emotionally editing yourself. Okay, your desires will become clearer when you stop negotiating your own needs. When communication is clean and direct, we feel satisfied emotionally, right? We feel less drained because we are no longer managing how we appear to be. Mm? And this is what I feel is coming out here, because we have the black egg, which tells me we're not really tapping into our emotional truth. We are maintaining emotional harmony, but at the cost of our authenticity. There's no real emotional satisfaction going on right now. There's constant questioning your own feelings after expressing them, right? So this needs to be balanced in order for us to get here, right? Truth just surfaces if we allow it, right? And our emotional bonds will feel genuine. We will be able to express our desires without guilt or without justifying ourselves, right? So, what helps here in practical terms, because that's what temperance is about, it's about balancing, and in practical terms, writing, journaling about what you feel. Be present in your conversations, be honest in your conversations. Say less, but more truthful words, okay? Pause before you respond emotionally. This is not a moment to react, right? It's a season that is asking us to be emotionally precise. Because if we do that, we will feel emotionally fulfilled. Okay? In some sense, our emotional fulfillment depends on whether we are willing to feel and speak from what is true, even when that truth is simple or a bit inconvenient. Okay? And when truth leads your relationships, your emotions, you will feel the harmony. It will flow through your life. And it's not immediate, but you will. Okay, let's go to our personal axis. See what is here for us in this Aquarius season. What is going on a personal level? This is too many. Okay. Okay, and we have the shark. Hmm. This is the source of inner pressure. This is internal avoidance. The shark, it doesn't circle around endlessly without a reason, right? When the shark appears, it's because something powerful is moving beneath the surface. It's creating tension because it has not been acknowledged. This is a specific truth And you already sense this truth, but you have not fully faced it yet. So if you're feeling any pressure, it's not caused by circumstance. It's actually being caused by suppressed desire, ambition, or an intent that you're denying. I'm gonna take a clarifying card. There is a temptation to tell yourself that nothing is wrong. Things are fine. Everything is fine. Yeah, got the devil. Mm. Yeah, this tension is not normal. This tension, this discomfort is not normal. This won't solve, it won't resolve itself on its own. This is not about something external, it's something internal. It's something that it's self-binding. Patterns of avoidance, justification, self-deception, they all these things maintain this pressure you feel. And the longer this goes unnamed and unrecognized, the more distorted it becomes. So, how does this express in practical reality? Well, you may be hesitating to say what you want, even to yourself. Um, there is likely something you desire or something that is driving you that you've labeled as inappropriate, selfish, or even unrealistic. Again, you might be managing an image rather than acting from your truth, from truth, right? There's this inner tension increases because energy is being split between what you actually desire and the denial. This is a lot of pressure, okay? So this must be balanced. There is only one way to correct this, and it's the same thing. Truth, honesty. And here with the devil, it's really not needed to be an external thing. It's not, you don't need to disclose yourself to others. It's just a recognition within yourself, right? Like, what do you need to admit to yourself or about your life, right? What are you afraid of if you admit that to yourself? If you're honest to yourself? This season won't reward self-denial, okay? Especially if you're trying to disguise it as a virtue. What you keep hiding will create more and more pressure. If you continue denying what is true about your desire and ambition, the tension will increase and your expression will become distorted. But if you acknowledge directly what you want, what you desire, what's your ambition, the pressure will release and your relationship to self actually will stabilize. This season, the choice is between honesty or self betrayal. And the shark, it doesn't circle around for nothing. It has a purpose. It doesn't attack without a cause. It actually reveals what you already know is there. Okay, let's move for the relational axis. That talks about our relationships during this season. What do we need to know for this season? Okay. Okay, we have the butterfly. Okay, reversed for me. This is incomplete transformation, right? The butterfly is a symbol of transformation. When it comes upside down, this tells me that it's not completed. So this season places relationships, might there be personal, professional, or even your relationship to self, can be inside a transition that it's not finished yet. Um, this is change in progress, not completed, right? Uh, this means something is reshaping, but it's not really stable yet. And because this axis is the domain of the heart, the discomfort is relational. It might show up as uncertainty about where you stand with someone, for example. Misalignment between your values and your behavior. Uh, Emotional fatigue. Uh, you might be questioning commitments that once felt very obvious and now don't make much sense anymore. But this is actually the reassessment of your integrity, of your coherence. Let me clarify with the tarot. Hmm. What do we have here? What is this unfinished transformation about? Okay, got a lot of cards. Maybe not too much. Okay, we have the Eight of Pentacles reversed. Hmm. Yeah, this tells me about the same idea before, that there's effort being applied inconsistently. And it's because you're feeling a bit discouraged. There may be a sense that doing the right thing hasn't yielded the expected emotional return. And this leads to resentment, right? But we also, sorry, I forgot another cards. Um, but then we have the Queen of Cups that reminds us that emotional intelligence is available, right? But we have to watch out for the imbalance. Compassion doesn't mean you erase yourself, right? Emotional maturity doesn't mean that you must endure what violates your values. And then we have the lovers reversed, which confirms this tension, right? Some connections are definitely out of alignment. They're not really broken, but they are no longer reflecting mutual choice, right? There may be emotional distance, mismatched priorities, a lack of shared direction. Okay. And then we have it, justice. Again, honesty, fairness, accountability. Hmm? This is not a time to force connection, closeness. Integrity matters more than harmony right now. The relational stability comes from actually not fixing relationships during this season, but to be consistent within yourself. This season strongly supports committing to a grounding daily practice. Same time, same place. It's very nourishing for our system, right? Movement, rituals, nourishing meals. Routines restore the heart's capacity to discern. And that's what's needed here, right? Transformation in relationships, it's not graceful when we rush it. If you demand resolution now, you only get frustrated. But if you allow clarity to unfold throughout this season through consistent self alignment, your integrity will return naturally. And remember, not every connection needs saving, but every connection needs honesty. So this season asks you to choose alignment without drama, without appeasing others, doing it first for yourself. Moving towards our expressive axis, also an axis that talks about our truth, communicating truth, expressing ourselves. What is here for this Aquarius season? Too many cards. One will be nice. It's too many. Okay. We have the octopus. Octopus. This is a recurring issue being highlighted here in this reading for this season. It's expressing without containing yourself. The octopus, when it comes reversed, shows a perceptive, sensitive mind that reaches outward too easily into other people's emotions, stories, conflicts, unfinished business, whatever. The problem is not lack of intelligence or empathy, but it's lack of boundaries. When our expression is not contained, our communication becomes very messy, right? We take on information that isn't ours. We share too much too quickly without discernment. We confuse emotional availability with intimacy. And this gets us emotionally entangled, right? This is very exhausting. And that's not actual, truthful, loving connection. Let me clarify with the tarot. Yeah, what in practical terms, this means that you might feel this might apply to you if you feel drained or unsettled after some certain interactions. You know, when you have conversations, deep conversation, emotional conversations with people, and they linger longer than they should, and then you get that icky feeling that I said too much, right? This regret after speaking because you were too open, right? So it requires definitely balanced balanced boundaries. Let's see. Let's just clarify. Whoa, too many cards. Okay. Okay, we have two cards. I will take it. We have the Page of Swords reversed. This is this is words that are spoken from reacting instead of trying to be clear. Huh? It's like when we talk to process things instead of processing before we talk about things. Excuse me. And that usually leads to misunderstandings, second guessing things, or feeling um that you revealed more than you intended, right? Then we have the Five of Cups reversed. And this is the cost of this habit. And also the opportunity, right? There is a growing awareness that certain conversational patterns lead to depletion. And there is definitely a willingness to do things differently. So, what deserves your voice, right? Um, you must create boundaries this season, okay? It's good to pause before responding, to share very selectively, not being in these reflective conversations all the time with everyone. Okay? Notice how your body feels after the conversations and allows also space between interactions so you can have time to let the information settle, integrate, and also give yourself a bit of time to interpret, right? And you're also not required to participate in every exchange available to you, right? Because being intimacy with others does not require full access. If you continue to reach indiscriminately, you will feel exhausted. Once again, it's all about energy containment. But if you choose clarity over availability, your expression will become clean and sustainable. And your voice needs space to remain true. Okay, we're really not used to be in truth all the time. So we need time to do that. And the best way to do that is really to be present, to stay calm. That's why we need to remain true. We go to the mental axis. Of course, we're talking about the mind, perception, thoughts. What do we need to know about our perspective throughout this Aquarius season? Okay. We have the eagle, also came reverse. Everything reversed today. Yeah, there's a lot of things about the mind in this Aquarius season. I do feel it. I've talked about this before. If you were here with me before, the ego reversed. Um, First of all, it shows me a mind that is powerful, that is capable, that is perceptive, but that by virtue of being reversed, it tells me that currently is constrained by its own need to oversee, predict, understand, know, manage outcomes. It's not that you don't have access to the insight, but you are over controlling it. There's definitely here a tendency to rely on intellect as a form of safety. Like your analysis becomes a shield, okay? That, like, certainty becomes a way of avoiding vulnerability. But this strategy doesn't work anymore, okay? And the strength of your mind is being tested by situations that cannot be solved through control. Let's see here. I'm going to clarify. You know, this karmic fire, it applies here as a necessity because I clearly see here too many currents that you are being placed in circumstances that demand humility, openness, and perception. Doesn't really matter if you're master things or you're certain about it or your interpretation is the correct one. And we have it here. I have the sun reversed, confirming this exactly. That clarity is present but is filtered. You are not actually wrong, but the old way of understanding no longer fits the circumstances that you're facing. There may be moments of doubt, lack of optimism, or the sense that answers are just out of reach. And this is not you're not doing something wrong or failing in your connection to the divine or the spiritual realm. It's just you're being recalibrated. Okay. Um, these attempts to figure it out, they only create more tension. So it's like you're in this thing that letting go feels so risky, but you are holding on so tightly that you're getting exhausted. And the message here, it's not for you to not see more, but to see differently. Okay? So, your mental clarity will not return through effort. It only will return when you release the need to control what it means, what things mean, when you allow uncertainty to exist without immediately solving everything, right? Trusting your perception before you have the explanation. Okay? Your strength is real, it's here, but it's being misapplied. If you continue to control your perspective, your insights will continue to be blocked. But if you allow yourself to not know, your vision will expand on its own. This season, it rewards mental humility. True discernment begins when you stop controlling. And let's finish off with the last domain, which is the spiritual. Oh, okay. We have the beep. Ah, finally, an upward card. So this domain addresses how we relate to meaning, to purpose, to contribution, to spirituality, right? It's not abstract in terms, but through how you expend your energy. And the bee symbolizes commitment, right? Diligence, sensitivity, devotion. to the subtle rhythms of nature. There is a genuine desire to contribute, to complete what has been started, and to add something meaningful to the larger picture. Your awareness is not detached, it is engaged, it's perceptive and responsive. However, this strength comes with a risk. Over identification with effort, okay? Spiritual meaning for this season is not found in withdrawal or transcendence, it's found in steady participation. But participation without rest becomes depletion also. So let me clarify this B energy, so diligent, hardworking energy in the spiritual realm. Yeah, I feel you're spiritually committed, but your energy is not there. And here we have it, Queen of Wands reversed. This shows the cost of continuous output without replenishment, right? What I was talking about. And what happens? Passion dims. We become agitated, irritated instead of inspired, right? And we cannot access our inner fire because it is overused. So there's not a lack of purpose here. There is a fatigue disguised as responsibility, you know? Spiritual awareness throughout the season is more about knowing when to stop instead of doing more. Okay. And well, there's only one answer here. And usually when the B energy is in out of balance, which I don't see it, but it's like can be, right? Because of the Queen of Wands is reversed. So it's to rest. This is a season that supports short breaks, changing your environment if it helps you restore your vitality. If you need to step out of the routines, do it, but without guilt, because the guilt part, it's what brings us down. There's a lot of devotion here, but devotion without recovery becomes self erasure. If you continue to push through tiredness, uh, things will lose its meaning. But if you allow yourself to pause, your inspiration will return without effort. Spiritual integration this season is about being sustainable, right? We don't need to work harder to stay aligned. We just need to rest enough to remain alive to what we love. This Aquarius season, it's about regulation, honesty, and restraint. And across all the 7 domains, we've seen that the same pattern repeats. Pressure eases when we stop leaking our energy. Might there be physically, emotionally, mentally, and relationally. What has been surfacing is not a lack of potential or love or intelligence or purpose. What has been surfacing is actually misuse of your energy, of your honesty, of your desires, boundaries, and effort. Aquarius season asks you to see clearly how you're relating to yourself. This season is to recalibrate. Okay. The new moon and the solar eclipse in Aquarius mark a quiet reset. It's not really, I know it's a new moon, but it's not really a new beginning that we can force, but a moment to shift and to respect the timing, right? Because what will change throughout this Aquarius season will unfold over time, but it's shaped by the choices we make right now about our pacing, our honesty, and our responsibility for ourselves and our lives. If there is one thread running through this entire season, it's that peace comes from removing what no longer needs to be carried. Aquarius season doesn't really promise that relief yet. It offers the clarity, and clarity, well used, becomes peace. So, I invite you to pause for a moment before you move on. Some things are meant to be held, considered, and integrated slowly. If this reading brought clarity, let it settle. If it brought discomfort, stay curious instead of reactive. Wisdom often reveals itself over time. So remember, temperance is the practice of choosing what truly matters and releasing what no longer resonates as truth. May this season be one of measured action, honest reflection, and steady awareness. May you move through it with discernment rather than urgency, and with responsibility instead of expectation. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next seasonal site. Much love.